What's up, people? What's up? What's up? Philadelphia Eagles have been busy this week. My goodness. A bunch of new signees. We're going to go over some of them. First and foremost, we got to give props to our man, Brandon Graham. 15 years, all as a Philadelphia Eagle, two-time Super Bowl, Walter Payton Man of the Year. The list just goes on and on. What a hell of a career. You guys look over on social media. I had an interview with BG about a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I was asking him about whether he was planning on coming back, because I thought he had a lot in the tank. And I felt like, the way he was playing before he got injured, he was just downright, playing the best football, that I think I had ever seen him play. So I was in the camp of, hey, bring BG back, man. Let's get this guy. He'll be a great help to a lot of these, young guys that you're transitioning to. But I don't know what the circumstances were. He said, hey, I'm going to be talking to my family. I've already been in contact with Howie. I'm not sure how it went down, whether he made a decision or, knowing BG the way that I know him, he's not going to leave and go somewhere else and try to get a little more in. I just think that, it was probably a meeting of the minds, partly him, partly the Eagles, with this new move towards youth, where he decided, that was it. But what a hell of a career. And, I just got to give my man some props. I'm going to even overlay him over my face so y'all can get a look at the legendary BG in all his glory. Two-time Super Bowl champion. Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. I think a Pro Bowler. The list just goes on and on. A guy who overcame huge odds when he first became a Philadelphia Eagle. I talked to him about that in my interview a couple of weeks ago. How it begins and how it ends. A guy that many didn't think would turn into much of anything turned out a career, a 15-year career, the all-time leader in games played at 206 games. Was willing to lay his body on the line for this team, this organization, this city, these fans, time and time and time again. A lot of y'all know, some of you probably don't know, he tore his triceps muscle during the regular season, had surgery, came back and played in the Super Bowl, and then turned around and tore it again in the Super Bowl and had to get surgery again. When you talk about a guy committed to a city, to a team, just a stand-up, all-star dude, one of the nicest people, most optimistic guys that you'll ever want to see and ever want to meet. Just a man of the people, from the standpoint of, hey, if you want an autograph, BG gonna give it to you. You want a picture, BG gonna give it to you. If you got a conversation you want to have with BG, he gonna give you his time. He gonna give it to you. He gave it all. And in his press conference, he said, I gave all that I had. I left it all out there on the field. And I just want to congratulate my guy, on one hell of a career. And, the best to him and whatever it is that he chooses to do. I got a feeling we might see BG doing some broadcast work somewhere down the line. He's got the energy. He's got the love for it. And I think that's what we might see. Well, folks, this is going to be a Talk to Him Tuesday. I know you guys got some questions that you got for me, some thoughts about some of these guys that the Eagles have signed. Before I jump into them, we need to talk about a couple of things, in my opinion. Mekhi Becton getting a deal and going to the Chargers. And I think a lot of people said, oh, no big deal. We kind of saw this coming. We got the young guys. It's time for the young guys on the offensive line. And Stoutland University, we trust. He's done this a number of times, come up with a way to develop a guy out of nowhere that turns into a perennial player for this football team. I'm just one of those people, to be honest with you. I'm really disappointed because I felt like, for 20 million, 10 million per, I think we probably could have got him for 8, 9 per, and he would have been happy to come back to Philly. I get it. It's a lot of money wrapped up. And I know that they just redid Lane's deal and gave him a ton more money. Gosh, I never thought that I would see in my lifetime, players making the kind of money that they're making. I ain't mad at them because guess what? In 1987, 88, that's what we went on strike for. I'm happy to see these guys get paid. But the dollars that they throwing around is just like mind-boggling to me. You got an offensive lineman making $25 million a year. Does he deserve it? Hell yeah, he deserves every single penny of it. But it's just unfathomable to my mind to see what I'm seeing. A wide receiver making $40 million on average per year. Absolutely mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. I get it. Quarterbacks, the quarterbacks are probably going to go up to $60, $70 million at some point in time. It is just mind-blowing to me to see where some of these salaries are going. And then at the same time, to see teams say, well, we can't bring this guy back. We can't bring that guy back because we don't have the salary space. We don't have the cash, to be able to get it done. But Mekhi Becton was one that hurt, man, because I felt like you had such continuity on that offensive line. Those young guys could have waited, in my opinion. Their development wasn't that monumental. I just felt like it was one of those situations where you could have just brought him back for 2 more years, solidify the offensive line, let those guys develop a little more, and 2 years down the road, when your Super Bowl window is beginning to just narrow a little bit, then you bring those guys along. Because I just felt like the continuity was so great. Another year with him and Saquon. You're getting Van Summeren back, so you're going to get some more I formations, some more fullbacks in the backfield, next year. I just felt like, one more year for Mekhi Becton, would have been great for this offense to continue to be as prolific as it has been. I think it's going to look different. I think Jalen's probably going to throw the ball a little more next year. I think the teams are going to try to replicate what they saw the Kansas City Chiefs do in the run game. Now, you got to have the horses to do it, and you got to have the players to do it. But I think the teams are going to break that down. They're going to look at that blueprint, and they're going to try to implement that, which is going to create some more opportunities, in the passing game for Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, talking about the passing game, talking about the tight end position, of which the Eagles have signed 2 new tight ends. Seems to me that Dallas Goedert's days are numbered. And I think I've seen a report somewhere today where they've said that, if they can't get a trade deal done at some point in time, they're going to release him and move on. Wow. I know he's had some injuries. I know that, salary cap space and dollars are of a premium at this point in time. But, man, I didn't think, that Dallas Goedert would be a non-consideration when it comes to this team. I didn't think that it would get to, we're going to give you permission to go seek a trade. Oh, by the way, if you can't we can't get a trade somewhere, guess what? We're just going to cut you and move on. Wow. Man, you talk about a team looking different. And like I said, I want to go through all of these new signings. But you guys There you go. Sorry about that. We 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 may have some issues. The internet, my hotel, hasn't been the best all day. So I apologize if from time to time, I drop, but I'm gonna sit right here, for 35, 40 minutes tonight and try to see if I can't, get this show in for y'all. It's not my internet, it's the hotel internet. Y'all see some cow pillows in my house, something really went sideways. Anyhow, I don't really know a lot about this tight end, um, Kyle Granson, and the tight end Harrison Bryant that the Eagles signed. Be kind of hard for me to believe, able to take quite a few games the last few years without Dallas, because that could be part of the reason why we're seeing what we're seeing as far as this move. But this Granson kid, he was with as a 4th-round pick of the Indianapolis Colts. During his time there, he's compiled 86 catches for 958 yards. And 1 touchdown while starting 17 games. Let me go down to this other guy. And listen, I'm not like the draft junkie, the free agent junkie, where I study all these guys, and the draft to me is such a crapshoot. Don't nobody know who the hell's going to draft who and who's going to go first and who's not. So in a lot of ways, I just as soon not, digging into these guys until, I get to see them on the field. I'd rather judge what I see on the field. This Harrison Bryant kid, he comes over from the Oakland Raiders, well, the Las Vegas Raiders. Y'all can tell how old I am when I say something like that. I guess he's got 98 career catches for 87 yards and 10 touchdowns. So it seems to me that the Granson kid may be, a blocking tight end, and this Harris might be you guys let me know if you see. I know I'm frozen, Charlton. I see it. There's not a whole lot of bars. I had full bars a minute ago, and then all of a sudden, the internet here has just been acting up. There's nothing I can do. But I hope you guys can bear with me and you get, the lion's share of what I'm saying. I don't know. I don't know if you heard me. I think that this Granson kid seems like more of a blocking tight end, and this Bryant kid might be more of a pass catching tight end. At the end of the day, they got big shoes to fill from a production standpoint, and maybe a lot of what we're seeing is the fact too that Grant Calcaterra showed some promise catching the football, last year, for Dallas Goedert when he was injured. Maybe you get the Jenkins kid is a pure pass catching tight end. He looks like a kid, for the Eagles who might be, just a pure pass catching, a transformed wide receiver to tight end, type player. But, there's a lot of production that, they're going to have to, pick up and take up for, once Dallas Goedert is out the building. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. That's the 2 tight ends. Patrick Johnson comes back, and all of these guys on a 1-year deal. That speaks volumes for me because, this is a look and see kind of, I think that we're going to start beginning to see quite a bit of this, from Howie because of the success of Zach Bond. Zach Bond, signs a massive contract. He was a 1-year sign on a prove it deal, and boy, did he ever prove it and cashed in. But Howie said, hey, this is what we're going to look like. We are going to go with the youth on the defensive side of the ball. And, these guys are just going to have to, bow up and grow up real quick. And, that seems to be their mode of operation, to sign a bunch of guys on a one-year deal. Let's see what they can do. And we'll go from there. But Patrick Johnson comes back, former draft pick of the Philadelphia Eagles, back in the day. And let me see, give me some information. His 7th round draft pick, the Eagles, back in 2021. And, had been a rotational special teams player. And then, he was released back in September and spent, the rest of the season with the Giants. Didn't do much, with the Giants. So they'll be looking to see if they can't ramp up the competition level, on the pass rush front. They also go and they sign a former Patriots rush guy, Josh Uch. Don't get mad at me for not knowing the name. I can't pronounce some of these guys' names. But he seems to have had, some success. He had a breakout year in 22 with 11.5 sacks, 9 tackles for loss, 4 quarterback hits. But since then, he's only had a total of 9 sacks in 4 seasons. So it seems to me that, what Howie is actually doing is bringing in some guys to up the level of competition, give some guys an opportunity. And at the end of the day, it's still one of those situations where, players always come free later on, whether it's cap situation, whether it's injuries by the time, you get to training camp, so on and so forth. No matter what it is, you're going to have a situation where guys are going to come available if they need to go and get a guy at some point in time. But, we'll see. Let's see, how that goes and where that goes. My wife told me to just text me and told me to wipe the camera. I guess I must look blurry to her as she's watching. How's that, babe? Anyhow, let's, the next big signing, let's start with A.J. Dillon from the Packers. Another guy, who is a bruiser, and when he's healthy, guess what? He is one heck of a player to be a backup for Saquon Barkley. Now, he's on a one-year deal, coming off of a neck injury, with the Green Bay Packers. Obviously, the Eagles want to create some more competition, don't want to just hand Will Shipley the number 2 job. I would think that Will Shipley potentially might be the third down back like Kenneth Gainwell was, last year, the last couple of years, or last year in particular. And, good luck to Kenneth Gainwell, with the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, this Dillon kid, he rushed for 770 yards and 7 touchdowns in 17 games, started 3 in 2023. He also caught 28 passes for 206 yards. He was teamed up with, what's the little skinny kid is with Minnesota? Aaron. I forget Aaron's name. I should know it. He went to the same college I did. Somebody will throw it in the comments here in a second. But he's, teamed up with him at that time in Green Bay. But now he signs a one-year deal to come over and show that, he's healed, ready to go. And Aaron Jones, thank you, Charles, that he's ready to go and ready to compete. The next guy is Adoree Jackson. Adoree Jackson has spent the last 4 years with the New York Giants after being drafted, I believe, I want to say in the first round by the Tennessee Titans. Yep, got that right. He's an 8-year vet, former first rounder in 2017. Spent his first 4 years with the Tennessee Titans before joining the New York Giants. My only issue with this is, you want some playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. And I get it. He's not that old. He's got 8 years in, brings a little bit of experience to a backfield that lost both Slay and Bradbury. On a 1-year deal again, maybe one of those situations where, he comes in and he is able to figure out how to, find himself in a starter's role. But I think also at the end of the day, you have, how he's continuing to create this competition at the position rather than just giving the job to Keely Ringo, who everybody believes is going to be the heir apparent on the other side from Quinyon Mitchell. You still create some competition at the position instead of just giving it to him. So it'll be interesting to see, hey, what he has left in his tank. He only has 4 interceptions, 4 career interceptions. And that's a little alarming to me for a guy who's played cornerback for thanks for y'all to say bless you. For a guy who's played for 8 years in the National Football League and be a cornerback and have 61 pass defenses, but he's only got 4 career interceptions. Good Lord. I had that many interceptions in 1 year and once or twice in my career. But, he's a need. He's a guy with experience. And I think that, when it's all said and done, he may be a guy that can help out. And we'll see. We'll tell. We'll see how all that works out. Let me look over here in my comments because I know. See, there you go. I knew I had some people that said, bless you. Who's left? I talked about Ben Van Sumeren. He's going to provide, some competition at the linebacker position. But you all guys also remember before he got hurt, with the knee injury during the regular season, he also, presented an opportunity for the Eagles to have a package where they utilize him as a fullback during the season until he actually got hurt. I see Cedric made a comment about what about Eli Ricks. Listen, he's still there. He'll probably be, in the competition of the situation. We'll have to wait and see how all that plays out. But it seemed to me that early in the season, I think they had Ricks was backing up Slay and Isaiah Rodgers was backing up. No, that's wrong. Eli Ricks started off the season backing up Slay, and Isaiah Rodgers started off backing up Quinyon Mitchell. And there was no swap. At some point in time, Ricks kind of fell off, and Isaiah Rodgers got the nod on both sides. And then you had Eli Ricks began to get a little more of a nod. Like when I think there was a point in time where Quinyon was out for a second and, or they pulled Quinyon, in a game that they was dominated. And then they had, both Ricks and Keely Ringo on the field at the same time. But I kind of get the sense, from what I've observed and what I've heard and what I've seen that, it looks to me like Keely Ringo is going to be the guy unless he just screws it up and messes it up, himself. Another guy the Eagles just signed yesterday from the Giants. I want to make sure I don't forget him. Aziz, I believe his name is Aziz Azeez Ojulari, good player when he's healthy. Signed a 1-year, $4 million deal. Had 8 sacks, I believe, his rookie year. He had 8 sacks his rookie year to set a new Eagles record. It was, listen, he can play. There was some rumblings, early on, that maybe he's a guy that how we should target. But, another guy who, we'll see that will come in and have an opportunity for playing time, a guy that's going to compete and push, whoever the projected star is going to be. You got to think that Nolan Smith is going to be on one side and Jalen Hunt potentially is going to be the starter on the other side. But, hey, you never know, because once the competition gets started, the guy who wants it the most is going to be the guy that's hungry. He's going to get out there and fight, scrap, and claw and try to, win a job. We will see how all of that just plays out. Who is that? Chris Kolarek said, Adoree can, be a punt and kick returner too. That's always an advantage to have that extra guy. You're absolutely right. Have that extra guy that can return punts. The Eagles didn't tender an offer to Britton Covey, which sends the message to me that, hey, they may be a little bit happy with Cooper DeJean returning kicks, but I'm of the opinion at some point in time, Cooper DeJean needs to come off the field as a punt returner. I just feel like, he is too valuable of an asset to have playing special teams. And I told you guys the story before. When I first started, I was playing on all the special teams and then got hurt, and Buddy almost choked the damn special team coach about me, playing every down and still playing on the core 4 special teams units. So I think that, at some point in time, you got to figure out, what you want to do with him. But I think at the other end of the spectrum, I think there might be with the Adoree Jackson signing, and then you turn around and you see them, sign Avery Williams. I believe he is with the Atlanta Falcons. With those signings, that might have meant the writing on the wall for Britton Covey. Listen, Britton Covey has been productive. I've always been a Britton Covey fan. I was just waiting for them to block him to take one to the house. Didn't ever seem to happen, but it seems to me that the Eagles have pretty much, kind of moved on as far as that's concerned. If there's anybody that I missed, I don't think it is. If there's anything that happens while we're doing the show and I missed it, you guys throw it in the chat, and we will throw it up, and we'll talk about it as we move into the talk to him segment of the show. So let's get into it. I'll change a banner right here, right quick. And then let me jump into your questions. I saw something that was real interesting here. I want to start with this one. Wealthy Mind said the Jaguars are fledgling offers for Trayvon Walker. Let's see, man. It all depends on. Now, I'm of the opinion that, Trayvon Walker probably got a pretty hefty salary. Is going to come along with him. As much as I wanted Myles Garrett, now that I look at the salary situation of the Philadelphia Eagles, it's highly likely that they're probably not going to go after a guy in a trade situation that would take up any further salary cap space. I'm not sure where they are as far as the salary cap is concerned right now. I do know that, a significant amount of that money that's left probably needs to be reserved, for the draft picks of this year. So while he looks tantalizingly, he looks like a guy that we might want to go after. I'm just not so sure from a salary cap situation that is feasible to actually do that. All right. I'm going to go all the way back up to the top and then work my way down. We got a good 30 minutes. Let's see, where do we start here? This is a good one. A little more tribute. Adam wants to know, should the Eagles retire BG's number? That's up to debate. I'm gonna let you guys kind of talk about that and chop that up in the chat, however you want to chop it up. Hey, listen, he's done something that few other players at his position has ever done. He's won 2 Super Bowls for this team, a very integral piece of, them winning the first one back in 2017. If I look at some of the guys that have played for the Philadelphia Eagles and their legendary status, some of those guys whose number has not been retired, I would probably say no, that they probably won't retire his number. But then again, that decision is not up to me, you, or anybody else. That resides with Jeffrey Lurie, the owner of the team, and a lot depends on how he actually feels about Brandon Graham and what he's contributed to this team, this organization, in the city. All right. Let's see. A lot of stuff about BG. So Eddie said, with BG retiring, his triceps coming back and playing, would you want to bring back Nolan Smith slowly? Yeah, listen, man. I mean, I'm thinking that Nolan probably had an injury, probably required surgery. I don't think there's no hurry to get Nolan to come back. I think we've all seen and know what Nolan's going to be. And just as long as he continues to work and understand how good he can be, that, at some point in time, he's going to realize that he just got to go out and do what he's got to do. What is this, year 4 that we're going on with Nolan? There's no great need, no great hurry to get Nolan back. When he's healthy and he's ready to go, I think that, teams, the Philadelphia Eagles are going to be ready to just bring him along when they need to bring him along, and that'll be how they approach it. All right. Let's keep scrolling for another interesting question here. Adam, you're all over the place today. So Adam thinks that Steen will be a better pass blocker. And Becton a better run blocker. I don't know. To be honest with you, I said this last week. I've seen Steen play. I've seen him have some good reps, and I've seen him have some questionable reps. Becton looked efficient across the board. Didn't really break down much in pass coverage, but pass protection, but certainly was a mauler and a huge difference maker in the run game. That is for 100% sure. All right. But hey, there's water under the bridge now. Let's see. A couple of Frozens again. Let's see. Let's go with Pat Ryan right here. He said, I wouldn't replace Dallas Goedert with either of those guys. Hopefully the plan is to draft a tight end. Listen, that's not entirely off the table either, but when you're drafting at 32, the question, you have to ask yourself, what quality guy is going to be there at 32? That's the first thing. Second thing, if there's a guy that they really covet, do they have enough assets, through compensatory picks? And we'll probably find out, shortly what the compensatory pick is going to be for Mekhi Becton. Is it one of those situations where they package up a couple of these picks from next year and move up maybe a spot or two in the first round to get a guy that they covered. I don't know. I think that it's going to look like tight end by committee. You got Calcaterra, who you know what he can do. Not a great blocker at all. You got Jenkins, probably a guy who's another pass catcher. Probably, injury, I believe, set him back. The fact that Calcaterra has been in the system, been on the team a little longer than he has. Maybe he has the upper hand, but they both seem like they're capable of catching the ball. But, if you're going to put those guys on the field in obvious situations where it's, those guys on the field, they throw the ball. The thing you had with Dallas, when he's gone, is that he was a premier blocker, but he was also a premier pass catcher. So that kind of throws defenses off. It's like when teams come on the field and they want to go big and they want to run the ball. When you put the big tight ends, you go big and you bring the extra linemen in, 9 times out of 10, you're going to run the damn ball because you got the beef on the field. You're not going to put the beef on the field if you ain't going to run it. Doesn't make any sense to do that. So when you present to the defense that you got a pass catching tight end on the field, the likelihood of you running the ball ain't that great because you know that guy can't block. And most of the time, especially if you have him attached to the box in some way, some fashion, that he's either going to have to block a defensive end, or block an edge guy, or he's going to be combo and blocking with somebody and trying to come off and get up on the linebackers, But if you know that guy can't block, you can't count on that. So I think that in some ways that, none of these guys are really brought here to replace Dallas. I think they're being brought here to find out whether they can block, can they be, a one pass a game, pass catcher to kind of throw people off when they're on the field and you go play action pass and he's wide open because don't nobody expect for him to catch a ball. Nobody expects for him to go out. Can he be that guy? Can he be that guy in protection when teams like the Kansas City Chiefs want to come with pressure and you need to keep that tight end in to be in the protection, to give you the 6-man protection, the 7-man protection when you keep the running back in the game? Can he be that guy? So no, I don't expect for anything that they've signed on a 1-year deal to be a change, an upgrade, not even an upgrade. Maybe that's even speaking way out of the box, but a comparison to what Dallas Goedert brings. But when you add all of these pieces together, now it's up to the coaching staff to kind of mix and match, these players in different situations to figure out how you can get the same productivity out of one of these guys or two of these guys that you got out of Dallas Goedert. Okay. All right. Let's keep it moving. This is when my internet was tripping. I don't know if it's still tripping. Charlton, he wanted to chime in with Calcaterra can't block at all. He's one that got hurt, sacked a few times. Maybe. I listen. I'm not going to dispute it one way or another. I think that it's pretty evident to anybody who's been watching that Greg Calcaterra is really not that great of a pass blocker. But the one thing that he can do, and he proved that when Dallas is out, is that he can catch the football and he got some speed on him if you can get him in the open field and get him, out there where he can make some plays. But you got to trust the coaching staff to kind of figure out, where these guys fit and how to utilize them. Okay. Let's see. Let's see. A lot of you guys are talking about Jalen Carter, the money he's got to get. Coop on nickel. I agree. That's Adam again. But I already gave you a question. And one more time, I hit you, Adam. Coop's a stud at nickel. I agree 100%. Because I think that was in response to someone saying that they should move Coop either outside or move him to safety. I say you leave a guy like that right there where he is. You don't move him anywhere. Give my man Birds 24 birds, on Coop. I agree 100%. You leave him right there in the slot. He was developing as one of the premier slot cornerbacks last year, and I am more in the vein of you go and you find that guy to replace Darius Slay, then you move Coop over there and have to replace that slot. I don't think you guys don't understand how hard it is to play the slot corner and all the things that is asked of a slot corner. When you get a guy in his rookie year to be able to do what Cooper DeJean did last year, you leave him there and groom him there and let him continue to get better at that position and go find you another guy through competition or maybe even a draft it if you have to figure that out. Man, did y'all see the deal with Derek Stingley Jr. got 3 years, $90 million. Man, listen, Cooper DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell got to be drooling on themselves right now as they working out to see a deal like that. Because down the road, what does that mean for Quinyon Mitchell if he can go to 2 Pro Bowls, and the numbers are just going to be ridiculous. $30 million a year for a cornerback who had 5 interceptions. Man, my mama had me way too young, bro. Way too young. But God bless him. Somebody got to make it. I ain't mad at him. I ain't hating one little bit. A lot of you guys are just making, comments, but I need some questions, bro. And I know I chirped for about 30 minutes, but well, let's look at this one because this is interesting. Right, stay right there. So Wealthy Mind said, no, sir. Greg Cosell broke down the film on Granson and stated that his specialty is pass catching. So there you go. And he wasn't even the one that had the numbers. It was Harrison Bryant that had the numbers. I think, 10 touchdowns, 77 catches, for, 800 and something yards. So, maybe we don't know. Maybe we don't know. We don't like I said, I'm not into studying these guys, especially the guys coming out in the draft from the standpoint that I can tell you what they can and what they can't do, how good. Like I know the base information, but these guys who study it, all year long, the minute that, a guy's name is brought up, somebody is, looking at their college film and looking at, the few games that they played in the National Football League and saying, well, man, this guy does this well. I'm in the camp, but let me see what he can do when he get in the camp. Let's see what he can do, when, the rubber meets the road. Because last year's production is not necessarily a guarantee of what next year's production is going to look like, feel like, or be like. So only time will tell. All right. Let's see. Looking for some questions. Boy, I got a lot of comments. I guess the closer I get down here to the bottom, the more comments I get. Questions. A lot of I hit Aziz Ajarale. Let's see. Somebody wants to know. Keith wants to know about Trotter. All right, let's talk Trot Jr. I think a lot depending on what now you got Oren Burks that moved on. Okay, so now obviously the next man up goes to Trot Jr. and you got your other starter, at linebacker, Kobe Dean is going to be coming back off a knee injury. So it seems to me that, throughout the offseason program and OTAs, the young Trot Jr. is going to get a lot of playing time, going to get a lot of reps. It'll be interesting to see if he can develop fast enough to create some competition for Nakobe Dean when he comes back, or maybe he's that guy that's next up. Nakobe's been here, 3 years now, 2-3 years now. And with the Eagles earmarking the lion's share of their dollars over on the offensive side of the ball, knowing that the next guys on the defensive side is you're probably going to have to take care of is, Jalen Carter, you're probably going to take care of next year. He's probably going to be the highest paid defensive tackle in the National Football League. You got Nolan Smith, that if he continues to improve, and rise the way that he has, that he's going to require, some serious dollars. At some point in time, they're going to have to shift. They're going to have to equalize some of this money because all the money's gone over to the offensive side of the ball. You think about it. Cam Jurgens is due for a contract raise. They just gave Lane a raise. They just gave they just re-upped both Jordan and Landon last year. They just re-upped both, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith last year. That's a lot of money. Jalen's on his franchise deal. That's a lot of money over on the offensive side of the ball. Saquon Barkley, $20 million a year. They got a lot of money invested over on the offensive side of the ball. At some point in time, some of that money is going to have to shift to the other side of the football in order to balance this thing out, especially when you had a defense that, with the exception of Saquon and the offensive line that pretty much carried you to a Super Bowl championship. So at some point in time, it's got to balance out in some way, some fashion, some form. And I don't know it to be true, because listen, they've been patient with Nakobe Dean for a long time. He's been a guy that they really wanted him to prove that he could play, and they stuck with him long enough for him to prove this year that he could play. Unfortunately, he has the injury. So when it comes contract time with him coming up pretty darn quick here as a third year guy, listen, when his contract is up, you're going to have to make a decision because, Zach Bond is still going to be in the middle of, his big deal, and when you really stop and think about it, could Young Trot be the replacement for Nakobe Dean? I'm just looking ahead a year or two. You threw it out there, Keith, but I'm just trying to project it a little bit because, the salary cap is going to continue to go up. I think I saw somewhere the estimates is by 2030 that the cap should be up around $300 million per year. I think it's up around 270, 280 right now. It went up 20 million this year. Probably be over that by the time we get to 2030. But a lot of these contracts that Howie has negotiated, a lot of that cash, was given in the form of bonuses. So even though those contracts, are structured that way, where even you get a guy like Jalen Hurts on average $50 million a year, but he's only counting 20-something million against the cap this year. How is that possible? Because a lot of the money is being thrown over to the side of cash in bonus dollars. Now that money gets prorated out over the length of the contract. So the lion's share of that money is probably going to come towards the end of the contract. A lot of those contracts are structured that way. That's why I say the Eagles have another 2 to 3 years to get another Super Bowl before they're probably going to have to take a step back, not only for salary cap reasons, but just because, Lane's going to be gone, okay? You start to look at the offense. A.J. Brown's going to be, closer to the end. How many years does he have left? Jordan Mailata is already, on his second deal. How much time that he has? So at some point in time, just like you're seeing on the defensive side of the ball, an adjustment has to be made. You would love to bring Sweat back. You would love to bring Milton Williams back. You would love to bring Slade back. But the truth of the matter is, from a financial standpoint, if the offense is the focal point, then you can't do it defensively. And that's why Howie's doing what he's doing and saying, hey, guess what? we're going to have to do it with the young guys. If we repeat or if we get back there again within the next 2 to 3 years, we're going to have to do it by playing these young guys and those guys coming along and exploding like a Nolan Smith or like a Cooper DeJean or a Quinyon Mitchell. You're going to have that kind of performance out of those guys. Reed Blankenship is going to be up. Do we bring him back, or are we looking for his heir apparent for cash and salary cap reasons? So, we'll see where it goes. Cedric wants to know, how do I feel about the defense now? And listen, the Eagles just won a Super Bowl, so I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I can't tell you, I didn't know what they were going to look like this coming year. New defense coordinator, new system, 2 rookies, didn't know that those guys were going to be what they were, didn't know that they were going to go and be able to bring back CJ GJ, didn't know that Jalen Carter was going to continue to progress at the rate that he did, didn't know that Nakobe Dean was going to be able to step up and become what they always thought that he could be. And nobody in the world could have told me that they would have seen that that Zach Bond was going to be a first-team All-Pro and, in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year. So I'm not going to cast any dispersions about, what I think this defense is going to look like, or how I feel about them, because I don't think that they're done. You got the draft that has to, go by. Can you get a right now ready guy on the defensive line? I'm thinking that that's probably where Howie's going to go, is defensive line first, if not offensive guard or a versatile guy that you could switch from tackle to guard that could potentially, play guard now, but maybe slide over to tackle, right tackle when Lane, hangs it all up. But I got to imagine that that's probably where his eyes are going to start looking, as at the offensive line and defensive line, to be able to, continue to stockpile, and have, depth at those positions, because I think they know now that that's how you win. But I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot of players that are going to have to play next year that we, quite frankly and honestly, don't know what they're going to look like and how they're going to pan out. You just never know. So rather than giving you my opinion about what I believe they're going to look like, I'll reserve that until I get a chance to see, when it is that they actually going to, what the finished product is going to look like. This defense has got a hell of a job. Vic Fangio and his staff, they did a hell of a job last year. They're going to be required to do a hell of a job once again this year with this defense if the Eagles are going to get back to the playoffs and make any kind of noise in the playoffs. All right. Let's see. What else we got here? I'm looking for another good question. Oof. I don't know, Adams. 45 million plus for Jalen Carter. I see you. I ain't saying it ain't gonna happen, because the way it is going, all we need is one good defensive tackle between now and next year to get some outlandish deal, and there you go. Pat Ryan wants to know, will Brandon Graham be an Eagles Hall of Fame in a few years? Unequivocally, yes. And I would imagine that it won't take him quite as long as it takes most guys to be inducted as a 2-time Super Bowl champion. All right. Let me see. And you guys ain't giving me a lot of questions today, man. I'm gonna have to start doing some shorter podcasts with y'all. If y'all ain't gonna give me no questions, I'm just gonna get on and say what I gotta say and call it a day the next week. Let's go with this one. I don't know. Devalier 73. What position you think Howie focuses on the draft? I kind of just touched on it a little while ago. I think that, definitely defensive tackle. We need some depth with Milton Williams gone. Thomas Booker, the fourth, looked like he was going to be a guy that was coming on, both him and almost Jomo. Ajomo looks like the guy, you know, if I had to take a guess right now, would be, you know, the number 3 guy with Jordan Davis probably playing first and second down, and Ajomo coming in on third down situations. And then in the rotation, he's at least in the 3-man rotation right now, you know. So that's going to be interesting to see what Jordan Davis is, you know, nearing a contract extension, whether the Eagles see it that they want to extend him, and what does that cost, and what does that look like, and potentially with him going into, you know, the final year before they actually have to do it, you know, will he be motivated to get down to 330 pounds, looking at the money that's potentially going to be out there, whether it's from the Eagles or whether it's somewhere else? Is he willing to get down? Is he willing to get his feet right? Is he willing to do what's necessary to be a better defensive tackle than what he's been, or whether he's just satisfied with being, you know, a first and second down run stopper? So I expect for them to, you know, defensive tackle, potentially a bona fide defensive end, because in that 3-4 scheme, really what Josh Sweat was defensive end, and Nolan Smith was an outside linebacker. I don't believe in buying into that. I think that, you know, teams are basically a 4-2. But I guess if you know, when they go to their 5-man front, then that presents the opportunity for Nolan to be the weak side backer. He can be the drop backer. You don't want, you know, your 6'4", 6'5", you know, 275-pound deep, you know, outside defensive end guy dropping in the coverage. So, you know, maybe they look for that true pure defensive end guy that they lost in Josh Sweat. You know, they dropped Josh Sweat a couple of times, but you could see he looked like a fish out of water. You know, Devalier, maybe even, you know, the offensive line. I would expect for him to probably address the tight end position, because, you know, Dallas Goedert's days are numbered. If a safety that they really love falls to him, I would expect for them to, you know, potentially look at bringing in someone to push Sidney Brown, if he is that guy, to push, you know, Christian McCollum, if, you know, he is in competition with Sidney Jones. You know, my comments about Sidney Jones last week got a lot of attention. I just want to come on here and say, listen, I believe in Sidney. I love the guy. He's just got to figure out a way to put a governor on his game and get himself to a place where, you know, he can play under control and know when to ramp it up and go 1,000 miles an hour and when to ramp it back down. But listen, don't get it confused. I love the guy. He's just got to figure out how to stay healthy and how to, you know, put a governor on his game. Let's see. I think I got time. I got time for one more. I may go over just a little bit. Let me see. Looking for a good question, man. Y'all are full of comments today instead of questions, but it's all good. I appreciate y'all being here with me. Let's go with Stephen Paro for the close. Stephen says, coaches think Ringo is ready for quarterback 2. What do I think? Listen, I love his size. I love his aggressiveness. I think I talked about it last week. The only thing that concerns me about him is that he's a tall corner. And in this day and age, and somebody put on in the chat last week, oh, you know, he's a 4-3 guy. There's nothing wrong with being a 4-3 guy, but if you're a 4-3 guy that's linear, that can't change direction, that's got stiff hips, 4-3 don't mean, you know, for anything unless you cover and go routes all day long. You got to have good footwork. I don't say that he doesn't have that. Again, my concern is that when you're playing against wide receivers that run 4-3, okay, and they start and stop you, they stutter route you, they double route you, you got to be able to get from 0, to top speed like that. And most of the times, that's not something that long-legged cornerbacks actually do well. Go back historically and look at some of the longer cornerbacks. Cromartie that played for the Jets. I'm just trying to think. I think we had one, Bobby Taylor, when he was here. Those guys, they can out physical you because of their size, their strength, and whatnot. But anytime you get those guys in man-to-man coverage, I'm always holding my breath because I've seen it too many times where these long-legged, cornerbacks, it takes them a while to get up to speed. But once they get up to speed, their stride is so long, then they're running these extraordinary 40-yard dashes. But the problem is these crafty wide receivers, they're going to double move you. They're going to give you all of these different shakes to try to get you to stop your feet because they know that if they can make you stop your feet, that your turnover time isn't as fast as theirs. And now they know that they can get separation. And if they get separation on you, baby, it's a wrap. In this league, the way the teams, run their routes and do the things that they do, it's just not the most optimal situations, for long-legged cornerbacks. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that he can't get it done. I have confidence in him that he can get it done. When I say it's a concern, it's just a concern. It's just a concern from the standpoint that I look at things like that. A lot of people don't pay attention to that. They'll look at him sometimes and say, well, man, he got beat on that double move. I'm telling you why he could potentially get beat from time to time on a double move. And it has everything to do with his long legs. The shorter your legs, the faster your turnover. That means you can go faster. Okay. The longer your legs, the harder it is to get out the gate. But once you get out the gate and you get the rolling, where those guys take 3 steps, to cover a certain amount of space, your long legs only takes 3 to get from point A to point B. So now you kind of understand what I'm saying. All right, I'm going to wrap right there, guys. It's always a pleasure being with you. I appreciate you guys. Continue to support. Love the numbers. Last week was off the charts. This week, off the charts again. I don't know what's going to transpire between now and next Tuesday. But I don't know what, I think when free agency started, the Eagles were the only team that hadn't signed one free agent. And since then, the Eagles have signed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 new free agents in a 1 week span, all on 1-year deals. So I don't know how much more Howie's got, that he's actually going to do. And if there's no breaking news or anything, nothing great going on, doesn't make any sense, to come on and just not have anything to talk about. Maybe I'll have Ray Diddy on next week and we'll talk about, some of these draft picks, because I know he's breaking all that down and talking about, who he thinks that the Eagles should take, and depending on where they are, whether or not the Eagles are positioned to get him, and whether, like I spoke about earlier, potentially if Howie, is willing to put himself in a position where he could actually move up and get a guy that they actually covered. All right. But I'll keep you guys posted one way or another. Follow me on social media. If I'm not going to be on next week, I would certainly, let you guys know. If you don't hear from me, count on me being here. All right. As always, take care of each other and be good to each other. Make sure you love each other. Congrats, BG, on a career well done. And I'll see you guys potentially right back here, same place, same time next week. Peace out.